I'll see that okay. Perfect. All right. As Rebecca said, we're going to go over some of Edmonton area profile. So if you haven't been on our website, mogulrg.com, we put together a pretty handy tool called the Edmonton Investor Map. Okay. So if you guys want to write that down, it's mogulrg.com. So from Mogul Realty Group. And what we've done on the map is, if you could take a look, we basically highlighted every section of the city. And when you click on a specific section of the city, it pulls up a couple things. So number one, top is a video that James did at an old Mogul Mastermind. So what we're doing is updating basically all parts of the map to give you kind of what's been going on in that area, because it's been a couple years since we've updated it. Couple key features. We're going to talk about just a general description of the area, common investment opportunities, your typical tenant profile, and just dive into everything about it. So you can click around, check out what's happening in a specific area. So today we're going to talk about the downtown area. It's always so funny when you go to like a different place, or you talk to people from across Canada and they're like, "Oh, you're from Edmonton. Cool, cool." Yeah, I've never been there. I've been to the mall actually, but then I went right back to the airport. But it's funny, like Edmonton gets kind of, people don't love it, but I actually think Edmonton is quite nice. Got a river valley, we finally actually have some high rises that you could call high rises. And it's pretty. What do you think, you guys? Yeah. Okay. A couple people. Thank you. I agree. I think it's a beautiful spot. So in our map, in the downtown core, what we have is the way that we're calling this section. So when you click on the map, it's going to bring up everything in green. Okay. So when most people think about downtown, they're going to think about the downtown core specifically, but we're looking at everything within that green corridor. Okay. A couple things that you should be aware of on the map are all of the dots with a hammer and a little train and like the little purple ring thing. This is the LRT map. So this is sections of where the LRT are going and where they currently are. So everything that is green is currently operational, constructed, it's all done. People can use it, okay? The one in yellow is under construction. So we've talked about the LRT expansion. It's in 2 phases, south and west. Currently, right now, everything in yellow is under construction, okay? As we all know, we've heard the jokes about how long it's taking. And yes, it's true. It's taking a long time. A couple people ran into the train. They're fixing it. We're going to have some, everything's going to be fine. Once they complete that section, they're going to move over to the purple section. Okay. And that's what we call the West Valley Line LRT. And that's going to be about a 5 to 7 year timeline. And then you can see up in the black, we won't really highlight it too much, but if you look at the city of Edmonton's plan for LRT expansion, it's 5 parts. That's kind of like phase 1 and 2. They kind of thought about it, they put it there, but they haven't committed to anything. Okay. So when we look at this map, we're going to be focused on, we're going to look at the downtown core, a couple other sections of the area. So we have the Oliver district. We kind of have the east border of downtown. We have the north section, 2 communities there. And then we have the Oliver district on the west portion. So tenant profile. Downtown is very, very unique in the fact that it ranges. It ranges a lot. You drive a couple blocks, people in Vancouver, it's like East and West Hastings. You kind of have that here now in Edmonton. You go to Rogers Place. This is beautiful. This is nice. You go like half a block north and you're like, where am I? I'm back in East Hastings. Okay, here we go. That is the demographic of downtown. Okay. So you have you have some low income. But then you have to the extreme side of very high income as well. Very, very diverse demographic as well. All ethnic groups. You have a large population of people kind of spread out. And then you have a really good diversity of tenant profile in different sections of the cities, okay? So you have your working class, you have new Canadians, you have low income, long-term tenants. So typically what we see is some of the lower income tenant profiles tend to stay longer in your rental properties. So when people always just say, you know, I don't want that type of tenant profile, it can serve quite nicely for a long-term tenant profile. As we all know, if anybody manages properties or, you know, deals with turnovers, those tend to be the most costly times in a property is anytime you have a turnover. We also have north of the north part by McEwen, you have a lot of students there, especially with the LRT and bus systems also. Pretty easy to commute to the University of Alberta. So you can have a really good demographic of students, young professionals. Obviously, we have a lot of high rises downtown, a lot of corporate white collar jobs as well. Young professionals are going to be working in and around that area. We have executives, white collar type of individuals as well. So in that type of clientele, we talked a little bit about a couple Mogul Masterminds ago about the short and medium term rentals and what that means. So a lot of opportunity for that type of individual as well. And seniors. Quite surprisingly, we actually have a lot of seniors moving into the downtown core. They want accessibility. They want nice amenities. They want a place to kind of just be able to relax, you know, elevators, all that good stuff. So those are some of the tenant profiles that we're going to be seeing in this area. So what are the key drivers for downtown? So obviously we talked about the LRT expansion. Back in RAIN, they did the transportation effect. We've talked about this in the past as well. But essentially what that means is they looked at a bunch of communities and they said, okay, or a bunch of cities across North America. And what they said is, what kind of appreciation do we get by being in and around the LRT or any sort of transit? What they found was you typically appreciate 8 to 12% over and above within the first 2 years of operation. So that's why a lot of people are going in and around the LRT, usually in about 800-meter radius is what they said. Next is city council push for density in the core. So this is also something that has been, you know, we've heard it before, a lot of push for density in the core. You've seen it. Edmonton is a very large city. We have a lot of land mass. Builders just build out and out. Infrastructure is expensive. People are not in the, you know, kids are not in the older schools, and we're having problems where we want the density in the core. So people, you know, the city has really been pushing for keeping people within the core. Ice District. Obviously, this has been a hot topic in Edmonton for quite some time. About, you know, a couple $1 billion going into the Ice District. It's not done yet. There's a lot of things that are still happening in that district. So that's creating a lot of hype, a lot of people coming in from out of town to go to events and venues and things like that. So a lot of key drivers for that specific part of the downtown core. Multiple towers, we're going to get into that a little bit, but there's a lot of development continuing to happen into the downtown core. And last but not least, walk score. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever checked your walk score when you're buying a property or taking a look at, you know, is there transit around? What kind of tenants are you bringing into your space? But walk score tends to be quite important for a lot of people. And so if you're looking at walk score, obviously anything close to the core is going to be a great option. Common investment opportunities. Okay. Number one, older condos. Have you guys ever seen those like too good to be true deals? You know, they're like under $100,000. You're like, holy, this is awesome. This is like a down payment. I own the whole thing. All right. You have to be cautious with the older condos. We talked about this in the past where back in the 2000s, a lot of people were buying apartment buildings and they were condominiumizing them, and then they would sell them off. But now you have problems with condo boards. You'd have reserve funds that are just depleted. You'd have special assessments that are, a quarter of the purchase price. And we have a lot of foreclosures. Means there could be a lot of problems in this type of investment. But if it makes sense, you do your due diligence, could be a really, really good option. Older multifamily. So in the northern part and some in the Oliver district as well, there's a lot of walk-up apartment buildings that can be really good. A lot of investors start out their investing career in multifamily in this part of town. That's why we're doing multifamily conversation tonight. That's why I picked the downtown core, because a lot of people buy in those areas. Short to medium term rentals, we touched on this as well. So a lot of things are happening in the downtown core where you can really, really do well on short to medium term rentals. Airbnbs, Verbos, executive rentals, really, really good options there. And something that a lot of people don't talk about, but you do need, a decent amount of capital to do redevelopment and land purchases. Sometimes you can get lucky and get a property that has, a cash flowing asset on top of the land. But usually it's going to be rooming houses or something like that. So you have to be really cautious when you're purchasing something like that, because tenants and management can be a little bit challenging. Some property managers, and actually most property managers, won't really touch rooming houses, and financing can be a struggle on those as well. Okay, so diving into the map a little bit more. So as we talked about, so you see the existing green dots, that's currently where the LRT is, okay? Then we have on our east section, it's kind of balancing between Central McDougall, the downtown core, and Macaulay, okay? So we talked about the East Hastings thing right on 97th, 101st Street. There are some homeless shelters there. There's a little bit of challenging tenant profile in the area. People are going to be, usually using those corridors, back alleys, as a way to get to some of the shelters, looking, kind of hang around in the alleys. So big thing, especially for people from out of town, they don't really understand how the downtown core is situated. So you have to be cautious. You have to understand the tenant profile that you might be encountering when you're going through and looking at apartment buildings, specifically in this area. If we're going to continue following the map up through the right-hand side on the east side, we have Central McDougall, and then we also have Queen Mary Park. So as you go further west, you tend to get a little bit of a better demographic. On the west portion of the downtown, you have Westmount, you have Glenora. Our $1 million properties are there. Very, very great tenant profile. Lots of crazy things happening there. So you do find that the tenant profile does increase if you get a little bit closer to the west side. Doesn't mean that everything on the east side is bad. You just have to proceed with caution when you're going through that. Okay. Moving a little bit further south. So we have the Oliver district, and right on the Oliver district, we have 124th Street. So lots of restaurants and trendy places, some apartment buildings in that area as well. But Oliver is really kind of cute. A lot of it has been developed already. There are some odd chances and some rare finds of finding an older house. Typically, these are zoned pretty crazy, like DC1, DC2. So you can put large apartment buildings on there, some RA7, some smaller zoning requirements there as well. So lots of options in that general area. And then if you're going to be looking at anything for the short to medium term, you really want to be focusing in and around Ice District, things on Jasper Avenue, things that are close to transit. Okay, so a couple projects. Again, we want to be looking, if we're buying an investment property, we want to be focusing on some of the projects that are going in and around the area. So a couple of projects that are happening that are under construction. So the Falcon Towers, this is 29 floors. And then the Parks, so this one is 35 floors as well. So we're starting to see a lot of the high rises and bigger buildings pop up in Edmonton, where before it was not even a thing. We had the Pearl, then we have Legends, and we're having more pop up ever so often. So we're going to dive into a little bit of some case studies. So these are, I actually, when I was looking at this was not even the cheapest one I could find. I did find one in the 50,000 range for, 600 square foot one bed, but they're out there. It's pretty crazy. So this one is a older condo. This is in the central McDougall area. Sorry, it's not a townhouse. That was from the last presentation, but it is 2 beds, 1 bath, purchase price of $73,900. So this is the ones that are very cheap, but you have to be cautious of a couple things. You have to be cautious of your condo fees. You have to really study the reserve fund. Always recommend get a condominium review company to look through all of the condo docs and just really ensure that you know what you're purchasing. How's a building being run? Typically, this and on multifamily, drive there at 2 in the morning. Roll down your windows. What's happening? What's going on? Next is a short, medium-term rental. So this is in the Jasper Ave area, kind of close to local. So good spots. Typically in the older buildings, what you're finding is you're getting a larger square footage in relation to, if anybody's been into Legends building, the 1 beds, even the 2 bedrooms, they're so small. They're definitely like Vancouver style. But if you look for the older buildings, you will find some better options with a little bit more square footage. Again, be cautious on how much your condo fees are and take a look at the reserve fund. So this one is 1,125 square feet, 2 bedroom, purchase price of $319,900. And condo fees on this guy is about $549 a month. So not too bad. So executive style rental, again, most people looking for the executive style, if you're especially doing the medium term or kind of like your high end Airbnb stuff, you're gonna want to be in the nicer buildings, the ones with all the amenities, all that sort of stuff. This one is at Legends, so 820 square feet. So you see the difference, 1,127 on the last one, 820 on this one, and the price difference, right? So definitely a big difference there. But this one's 2 bedroom on the 34th floor, $570,000 for this one. But your rent's going to be a lot higher, going to be able to get a little bit of a better premium on this guy. And this one's right in the heart of Ice District. Okay. Older multifamily. So this is a current deal that's pending right now. This is an 11-unit building in central McDougall. So on this one, purchase price of $999,000, just under $1 million. And it actually has an assumable mortgage. So right now, some of the CMHC insured mortgages, people would get 5-10-year terms at some pretty crazy low interest rates. Ours, I think we have 4 or 5 years left at 1.49%. So there are deals out there that have those assumable mortgages on them. This one is assumable. I think it's got a couple years left. Does need work. So those are deals that can be had. Again, tenant profile is extra important. Really make sure you know what kind of tenants you're going to be dealing with, what kind of renovations you're going to be needing to do, some of the CapEx expenses that you're going to have to put into it to get it to where it needs to go. All right. Last but not least, so this is a rooming house. Pretty sight, hey? It's a nice unit. Woo-hoo. So it was crazy when we had this one marketed, and I think when we put it out, it said people didn't read it. It said 32 rooms, but people thought it was 32 units for under 900,000. So we had so much interest. It was absolutely crazy. and broke some hearts when we told them it was rooms and not units, but that's okay. This one, 32 rooms, 8.61% cap rate. And this was a option for a lot redevelopment. So if you can see on the left side there, you have a huge space. So lots of opportunity. This is kind of on the east side of downtown, just off 95th Avenue. So Quarters is an area that the city has been talking about building. LRT is coming. Some of the infrastructure in that area is there, but some people, they want to bet on those areas. They want to get in before prices start to go up. It is definitely a gamble. You're rolling the dice to see if more development is going in that area, but it can pay off for sure. Again, on tenant profile on this particular building, it's a rooming house. So they have week rates, day rates. They have, some of the tenants are, they want to save up their money and live on the streets in the summer. And then in the wintertime, they're going to come back to here. So finding a property management for units like this and financing can be very challenging, but this was a pretty actual number on the cap rate, so you can increase it. So there are opportunities on rooming houses like this. So conclusion. All right. Well, we went over a lot of stuff today and a lot of various options for investing. When we're talking about downtown, there's so many options. Comes to tenant profile, purchase price, locations, all these things are factors for you. So when you talk about risk and reward, what kind of person you are, these are things that you'd ask yourself, and then you can really decide if some of the locations and investment opportunities are right for you. I think in the downtown core, there's a lot of options. People were talking about after COVID, Edmonton was one of the most repopulated downtown cores in all of Canada after people left from COVID and then came back. So we're seeing a lot of revitalization in the downtown core. I think a lot of the areas outside of downtown are going to be great options, and we're going to see some growth. So for me, it's something that I'm continuing to look for opportunities in this section. That's it. Thank you so much.
All right. I love that question of like, what kind of investor are you? Like, who are you as a person? I'm like, okay, so all of our rental properties for the most part are in Millwoods and Allendale. And I'm like, we had to do an eviction last week. And we drive up and Adrian's like, go knock on the door. And I'm like, I